My family cut me off. Here's what happened next. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. 3 years after disowning me, my mother texted, "Jamie, we need you." I was on break at the warehouse, hands still dusty from cardboard, when my phone buzzed. The name, Mom, looked wrong on the screen, like a ghost had learned to text. I stared at it long enough that my coworker Miguel leaned over my shoulder. "Dude," he said, "you okay? You look like you saw a cop behind you." "Worse," I muttered. I saw my mother. I'd built my whole new life on the assumption that they were gone. I stacked pallets, paid rent late, but paid it myself, bought my own off-brand cereal and my own off-brand therapy. Being cut off hurt, but it was clean, like an amputation. You learn where the wound ends and where you begin. Now here she was. I opened the message. "Jamie, we need you to talk to a lawyer for your father. It's important. It's about the accident." The accident? My stomach dropped so hard I almost laughed. Of course that was the word she used, like it was a dropped glass instead of a life blown apart on a dark road. Miguel snapped his fingers in front of my face. "Hey, Earth to Jamie. You look bad, man." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just family stuff. My name is Jamie. I'm 28. I make just above minimum wage, and I spend my days lifting other people's boxes so I don't have to carry my own. I used to think family meant safety. Now I know it can also mean a loaded gun aimed at your future." If I answered Mom's text, I could reopen every scar I spent 3 years stitching. If I ignored it, I might watch them finally choke on their own lies. Either way, something in my life was about to shift off its axis. I typed, deleted, typed again, and finally sent 4 stupid words. "What do you need?" I had no idea that question would drag every buried secret back, screaming. To understand why that text felt like a bomb, you have to understand my family's religion, reputation. Growing up, our house looked like a magazine spread. White couch no one was allowed to sit on, framed family photos where no one was actually touching, my dad, Mark, in his pressed shirts, my mom, Elena, in soft pastel cardigans, always smiling like a politician's wife. We lived in a mid-sized suburb where the biggest crime, according to my parents, was letting the neighbors see your mess. Family unity, Dad used to say, tapping the table with 2 fingers. That's what we have. That's what they don't. If you didn't nod along, you were being difficult. I was difficult a lot. My younger brother, Noah, learned early how to fold himself into whatever shape Dad needed. Star soccer player, church volunteer, future, something respectable. I was the weird one who read banned books, asked why we pretended everything was perfect, and suggested maybe we shouldn't donate to a church that covered up scandals. Mom's line was always the same. "Jamie, can you please not make things harder?" The last normal memory I have is a Sunday dinner right before everything cracked. Mark passing the roast like a benevolent king. Noah talking about moving in with his girlfriend eventually. Mom reminding him that living together before marriage sends the wrong message. I'd mentioned I'd applied for a job as a social worker's assistant instead of grad school like Dad wanted. Dad's smile went thin. "So you'd rather swim in other people's dysfunction than rise above your own?" "Helping people isn't dysfunction, Dad," I said. He set down his fork. "People like us get helped, Jamie. We help others by being an example. Remember that." I remember thinking, an example of what? I didn't know that the next time we sat around that table, I'd be on trial. The night everything shifted started like any other performance. Us in our church clothes, Dad shaking hands like he was campaigning for something, Mom smoothing invisible wrinkles from my shirt. "Try not to look so bored," she whispered. "People notice." "I am bored," I whispered back. "They can notice that, too." After the service, Noah tossed me the car keys. "You driving?" he asked. "I've got a headache." Dad frowned. "Noah can drive. Jamie, ride with your mother." It was stupid, the kind of detail you only remember later when lawyers care about timelines and who sat where. But I remember the flash of relief on Noah's face when he didn't have to be near Dad for the 20-minute drive home. Hours later, I woke to headlights slicing across my bedroom ceiling and the sound of our front door slamming. Voices, low and sharp, floated down the hall. "You weren't supposed to be on that road, Mark. Keep your voice down, Elena." I cracked my door. Mom's was half open. Her phone lay on the bed, screen glowing with a notification. I know, I shouldn't have, but curiosity has always been my worst sin. A text thread with unknown. You hit him and drove off. I saw your plates. Pay what we agreed, or I go to the police. Under it, Mom's reply from earlier that day. Stop contacting this number. We've taken care of everything. My heart pounded so loud I almost missed Noah's door opening. Jamie, he whispered. You awake? I shoved the phone back. Yeah. What's going on? He looked past me toward the stairs, face pale. Dad needs us downstairs. Now. I didn't know yet that we were being summoned to become his alibis. We gathered in the kitchen like it was another family meeting about my attitude. Only this time, Dad's tie was crooked and there was a scratch down the side of the SUV outside. Mom stood by the sink, arms wrapped around herself. Dad didn't waste time. There was an accident tonight, he said. A man on a bike wasn't where he was supposed to be. Is he okay? I asked. Dad's jaw ticked. He's in the hospital. The important thing is, someone is trying to extort this family, and we are not going to play victim. Noah's voice shook. Did you hit him? Dad's eyes sliced toward him. I was driving within the speed limit on a dark road. He came out of nowhere. I kept moving because stopping in that neighborhood at that hour is asking to be robbed, or worse. That's not how that works, I said before I could stop myself. His gaze snapped to me. Excuse me. You hit someone and left? My throat went dry. You have to report that, Dad. That's me protecting this family, he cut in. If the story gets twisted, it doesn't just hurt me. It hurts all of us. Noah, you were with me, right? Noah looked like he might throw up. I know. I left after church. I went to. Dad stepped closer, voice low. Think very carefully, son. Mom finally spoke. Mark, stop. They're scared. He turned on her. Do you want their lives ruined by some ambulance chaser? Because if I go down, we all go down. Then he faced us again. We're going to say Noah was driving, got spooked, and came straight home. Minor incident, no one's fault. The lawyers will handle the rest. Noah's eyes met mine, silently begging me to fix this. Absolutely not, I said, my hands shaking. I'm not lying to cover a hit and run, Dad. I didn't realize that was the first time he decided I was expendable. You'd think refusing to help cover a crime would make you the hero. In my family, it made me the disease. The next week blurred into threats disguised as concern. Dad knocked on my door with a practiced sigh. Jamie, you're being dramatic, he said, perching on the edge of my desk like it was his throne. No one is asking you to perjure yourself. Just soften the truth. That is literally perjury, I said. You want me to say Noah was driving when he wasn't? He smiled without warmth. You always have to make everything sound ugly. This is a misunderstanding that needs the right framing. Mom tried the softer angle over coffee. Your father is scared, she whispered. If people find out, we could lose everything. The house, his job, Noah's future. And what about the guy on the bike? I asked. Did he lose anything? Or does that not count because he doesn't live in our zip code? Her eyes filled, but the tears never fell. Why do you always have to attack us? By the time the lawyer's letter arrived, clean, official, with a space where my statement should go, I'd already told them no a dozen times. The cutoff itself came in the form of a family meeting around that same perfect dining table. Dad placed an envelope in front of my plate. If you refuse to support this family, you are choosing to remove yourself from it, he said. We will not fund your rebellion. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a check for 1 month's rent and a list of bank accounts with my name crossed out. Mom wouldn't look at me. Noah stared at his water glass like it held answers. So that's it. I managed. Say what you want or starve. Dad's voice was ice. Sometimes tough love is the only language the ungrateful understand. I walked out with the envelope and a single suitcase, not realizing the exile was only the first layer of their punishment. If you've never been cut off overnight, let me translate. It's not cinematic. It's math. You open your banking app and realize the family savings account you thought had your name is actually a leash they yanked away. You check your wallet and count $43 and some change. Your next paycheck is a week away. Rent is due in 5 days. I crashed on a friend's couch for 2 weeks, then a cheap motel for 3 nights when his new girlfriend started leaving her earrings on the coffee table like landmines. The warehouse job came after a string of humiliating interviews where managers glanced at my last name, smiled politely, and said they'd be in touch. Apparently Mark had been in touch first. Your father says you're going through something. One HR woman had said gently. We're just not sure you'd be a stable fit right now. Translation, he was poisoning the well. I learned to stretch ramen with frozen vegetables, to pretend I wasn't sick so I wouldn't miss unpaid hours, to cry only in bathrooms where the hand dryer could cover the sound. Aunt Rosa found me when I was walking to work one freezing morning, hoodie no match for the wind. Her beat-up Honda pulled alongside the curb. "Get in, Mijo," she said, not bothering with hello. "You look like a stray cat." In her warm kitchen, over 2 sweet coffee, she listened without interrupting while I spilled everything. The accident, the lies, the cutoff. When I finished, she sighed. "Your father's been rewriting history since he was a teenager," she said. "But this is bigger." "Bigger how?" I asked. She hesitated, thumb tracing the rim of her mug. "Because this time, there's a paper trail he can't control." I didn't know yet how many ugly receipts were already stacked against him. Life settled into a shaky rhythm. Work, sleep, cheap food. Therapy once a month when I could afford it. I told myself I was done with them. No more checking their socials. No more driving past the house like a ghost. But lies are loud, and they travel. The first crack came through an old high school friend, Danny, who slid into my DMs one night. "Hey, random question. Did you really get kicked out for drugs?" I stared at the message, then laughed so hard I scared my upstairs neighbor's dog. "No, I did not." "Who told you that?" "Your brother's friend posted some story on Insta. Said you're battling addiction, and the family had to set boundaries." My hands shook. Dad wouldn't get his hands dirty online. He preferred whispers in church hallways. But Noah? Noah would do anything not to lose his room in the house. Another crack. A misdelivered letter at my mailbox. Same last name, wrong first name. I opened it without thinking. It was from an insurance company, addressed to Mark, about an ongoing claim. Liability dispute. Bicycle collision. Pending civil action. I Googled the case number in the public records database during my lunch break, heart thudding. The file was thin, but there it was, the cyclist's name, the date, the road. Filed by the victim's sister. My skin went cold. So much for it's all taken care of. That night at Rose's, I mentioned it casually, trying to sound less rattled than I was. She went still. "They're still fighting it. You knew there was a lawsuit?" Rosa pressed her lips together, thinking. "Your father asked me for money months ago," she said slowly. "Said he was being harassed by some woman who wanted to ruin his life." She opened a drawer and pulled out a crumpled receipt. I told him no. He left this behind. It was from an ATM, withdrawal, $5,000, marked with a handwritten note. Cash for settlement. Suddenly, the narrative of a single panicked mistake didn't look so simple anymore. Once you see one loose thread, you start tugging at everything. I spent every spare hour in the public records office, the kind of place that smells like dust and overheard secrets. The clerks got used to me hunched over old monitors, scrolling case dockets and property liens. The cyclist's name was Anthony Morales. 32. Construction worker. No priors. The night of the accident, he was riding home from a late shift. 2 weeks after the collision, there was another filing. A harassment complaint Anthony's sister had tried to submit after repeated intimidating visits from unknown men in suits. It never went anywhere. I printed everything and brought it to Rosa. "Men in suits," I said. "That sound like Dad's lawyers to you?" She rubbed her temples. "It sounds like him, yes. He always believed money could erase anything if you wrapped it in enough paperwork." Then she said something that made my stomach flip. "This isn't the first time he's done something like this." "What do you mean like this?" She hesitated. "When your father was 19, there was another situation. Different circumstances, same pattern. He hurt someone, his parents paid, and everyone pretended it was a misunderstanding." "Why didn't anyone tell us?" I asked, voice sharp. "Because that's how the family stays respectable," she said bitterly. "We keep the worst parts quiet and call it loyalty." I thought of all the times Dad preached about integrity, about people these days refusing to take responsibility. A picture was forming, and it was ugly. Generations of mess he never paid for, stacked on top of each other like a crooked house of cards. The more I read about Anthony, the more real he became. His sister's posts asking for prayers, a GoFundMe link for medical bills, photos of him grinning with missing front teeth and paint-splattered jeans. He wasn't a problem to frame or a line item in a settlement. He was a person my father had broken and then tried to bury under money and lies. I didn't know yet that Anthony's sister had questions only I could answer. The message came on a Wednesday, late, when my brain was too tired for anything but doom scrolling. A Facebook request from a woman named Marisol Morales. Mutual friends, none. My finger hovered. Then I accepted. Hi, Jamie. I'm sorry to bother you. I think your father hit my brother. I stared at the words until they blurred. Why do you think that? Because he was there that night. And because he ran. We went back and forth, cautious at first, then faster, filling in blanks the lawyer's documents left empty. She'd seen the SUV. She'd chased them and got part of the plate. Police dragged their feet. Suddenly, she started getting visits from representatives, telling her she was mistaken. When she wouldn't drop it, the money offers started. I don't want his money, she wrote. I want him to admit what he did. I told her I wasn't there on the road, but I was there after. I told her about the staged alibi, the pressure, the cutoff. She went quiet for a long time. I'm sorry your family did that to you. But you might be the only one who'll tell the truth. The next day, I got another text, this time from Noah. Stop talking to random people about the accident. Dad's freaking out. I hadn't told my family I knew Marisol. If no one knew I was digging, it meant they were watching me closer than I thought. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut said answer. Hello. Is this Jamie Alvarez? A clipped voice asked. This is Attorney Keller. I represent your father. Of course he did. We've been made aware that you've been in contact with certain parties related to an ongoing civil matter, he said. We strongly advise you to refrain from any statements that could be construed as defamatory. You mean truthful? I said. There was a pause. Your family, Jamie. We all want the same outcome here. For the first time, I wondered if the outcome they wanted involved making me disappear in more ways than one. Which brings us back to Mom's text about the lawyer, 3 years after they cut me loose. I met her at a chain coffee shop halfway between my apartment and their perfect suburb. She'd chosen a corner table where no one from church was likely to see us. She stood when I walked in, like we were strangers on a blind date. You look different, she said. Poorer, I offered. She flinched. Older. Tired. Well, getting exiled will do that to you, I said, sliding into the chair. She stirred her coffee, so long it had to be cold. Your father is not well, she said finally. The stress from this situation, it's affecting his heart. I thought of Anthony hooked up to machines because Dad chose his reputation over a human life. Hard to feel bad about karma showing up late. We need you to tell the truth, she said quickly, seeing my face. To the lawyer. To the court, if it comes to that. The truth. I repeated. Your version, or mine? She winced. Jamie, please. This woman is trying to destroy us. Marisol is trying to get justice, I said. Something you never taught us about. Her eyes filled. If your father goes to prison, we lose everything. The house, Noah's degree, my insurance. I don't know how to live without him. There it was. Not, he did nothing wrong. But, I don't know how to live without him. What exactly do you want from me? I asked. She slid a manila folder across the table. Inside was a prepared statement, neat and sanitized. It leaned heavy on confusion, bad lighting, and misunderstanding, conspicuously light on the words hit and run. We just need you to sign, she whispered. Say Noah was driving and panicked. He's willing to take the blame. The judge will go easy on him. I stared at her, realizing they were still trying to trade one son's future for another's silence. I hadn't yet decided whether I'd burn the script or read it in court. I didn't sign. Not that day. I'll think about it, I said, which was the closest I'd come to lying for them in years. Mom clutched my hand like I'd agreed to everything. Thank you, she whispered. Maybe we can fix this. Maybe we can fix thus. On the bus home, I read the statement 3 times. It painted Noah as a scared kid who made a split-second mistake and Dad as a hero who took responsibility by arranging medical care. Marisol and Anthony became faceless complainants, twisting the story for a payout. Miguel whistled when he saw the folder. That looks official. You in trouble? Always, I said. After my shift, I went to Rose's. She read the document with her jaw clenched. This is filth, she said flatly. They're still trying to make you their shield. What if I could do more than refuse? I asked slowly. What if I could actually help Marisol's case? Rosa looked at me over her glasses. Testifying against your own father is no small thing, Jamie. He's not just my father, I said. He's a man who's been hurting people and hiding behind us for decades. She nodded once, like she'd been waiting for me to say it. Then you need a lawyer who isn't on his payroll. That's how I ended up in a cramped office downtown, telling my story to a tired public interest attorney named Harris. I laid out everything. The kitchen meeting, the alibi they wanted, the cutoff, the harassment of Marisol. When I finished, Harris leaned back. If you're willing to swear to this under oath, he said, you could blow his defense apart. Or blow up what's left of my family, I said. He shrugged gently. Maybe both. The question is which one you can live with. I walked out into the cold evening, statement in my bag, 2 possible futures weighing on my shoulders like lead. I still hadn't decided which version of the truth I was willing to lose them over. The confrontation came faster than I expected. Dad requested a family dinner, which in our world meant a performance with higher stakes. I almost didn't go. Rosa insisted. Better to see the battlefield than guess from a distance, she said. The house looked the same. Manicured lawn, tasteful porch light, wreath on the door. Inside, though, the air felt wrong, too tight. Noah hovered in the foyer, thinner than I remembered. Hey, he said awkwardly. Hey, I echoed. You look like a hostage. He gave a humorless huff. You have no idea. In the dining room, Dad sat at the head of the table, a king whose crown had slipped. His hair was thinner, his skin sallow, but the arrogance was intact. Jamie, he said, standing just enough to make it look like respect. I appreciate you coming. I'm here for the free food and the spectacle, I said, taking a seat. Mom shot me a warning look. Dinner was a prop. Roast chicken, potatoes, salad no one touched. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. I hear you've been talking to the other side, he said. That woman. Her lawyer. Her name is Marisol, I said. His eyes narrowed. You're my child. Your loyalty should be with us. You cut me off, remember? I said. You've forfeited the right to that word. Noah shifted. Dad, maybe if we just... Quiet, Dad snapped. This is between me and the traitor. The word landed heavy. There it was, said out loud at last. Here's what's going to happen, he continued. You will sign the statement. You will stop talking to that woman. In return, we will welcome you back into the family. Half measures don't exist here. And if I don't? I asked. His smile was thin and mean. Then I will tell everyone, from this church to your job, that you're unstable, vindictive, and lying to get attention. Who do you think they'll believe? For the first time, I realized he still thought he owned my story. I also realized I'd been collecting more than just paperwork. I'd been collecting witnesses. I don't know what you would have done in that moment. I only know what I did. I pulled out my phone and laid it on the table, screen up. The recording app's red timer blinked softly. Dad's face drained of color. What is that? Insurance, I said. You just threatened to smear me for telling the truth. That's a crime, Mark. Mom gasped. Jamie, you can't record family conversations. Actually, I said, in this state, I can record my own conversations. Lawyer confirmed it. Dad's chair scraped back. You'd really drag your own father into court? You dragged yourself there when you chose to leave a man bleeding in the street. I snapped. I'm just choosing not to lie about it. Noah stood abruptly. Stop it, both of you, he shouted, voice cracking. I can't breathe. He looked at me, eyes wild. If you testify, they'll crucify us. If you don't, he'll keep doing this. How am I supposed to live in either world? By picking the one where you're not his weapon, I said quietly. Dad's mask slipped completely. You ungrateful little parasite, he snarled. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything, and this is how you repay us. By finally breaking the cycle, I said, you don't get to use my silence as another bribe. I took the folder with the fake statement, tore it in half, then in half again. Consider this my answer, I said. I'll be testifying for Marisol. Mom sobbed. Noah sat down heavily, like his strings had been cut. Dad stared at me with a hatred so pure it almost felt holy. I don't have a son, he said. Not anymore. Good, I said. Now we agree on something. I walked out before I could see who tried to follow. I didn't know that the next time I saw my father, he'd be in a hospital bed. The hearing was brutal and boring at the same time, like most legal things. I told my story under oath, hands trembling, voice cracking in places I wished it wouldn't. Marisol sat behind the plaintiff's table, eyes shining, tissues balled in her fist. Dad sat with his lawyers, suit immaculate, face composed in that concerned citizen mask he'd perfected over decades. When the recording of his threats played, the mask finally cracked. There was a collective murmur in the courtroom, like everyone had just watched a magician reveal the trick by accident. The judge didn't send him straight to prison that day, but the ruling wasn't what Dad's team wanted. The civil judgment hit hard. There were mentions of possible criminal charges pending further review. A week later, I got the call. Heart attack, mild but scary enough to land him in a hospital bed with wires taped to his chest. Rosa drove me, silent, letting me decide whether we'd actually go up. In the end, I did. Not for him. For me. He looked smaller there, hospital gown swallowing his pride. Mom sat in the corner, mascara smudged. Noah was absent. You came, Dad rasped. I came to say this in person, I said. Whatever happens next with your health, I'm done being your shield. I won't visit if you just want to relitigate the case. I won't let you use guilt to drag me back. He closed his eyes. You ruined us. No, I said softly. You did. I just stopped helping you hide it. Outside the room, Mom caught my arm. Can't we just start over? She whispered. We can start new, I said. But not over. Over would mean pretending none of this happened. I handed her a card for a therapist who specialized in families of abusers. If you ever decide to tell the whole truth, call me. Until then, I need distance. Walking out of that hospital, I felt lighter and lonelier than I ever had in my life. I still had to figure out how to build a future from scorched earth and secondhand furniture. Healing wasn't a montage. It was boring, repetitive work. Therapy every other week. Stretching my warehouse job into something sustainable while I took night classes in counseling. Learning to answer any family history of heart disease on medical forms without spiraling. Rosa became my anchor. Sunday dinners at her place replaced the performance meals at my parents' house. We ate beans and rice off mismatched plates, talked about real things, her arthritis, my panic attacks, Marisol's updates about Anthony's slow recovery. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think about Noah. We texted, cautiously. He was still at home, helping Mom juggle bills now that Dad's legal fees were chewing through their savings. I'm not ready to leave yet, he wrote once. I know, I replied, but I'm watching him the way you taught me. That was something. I set hard boundaries in actual writing. No surprise visits, no secret recordings, no contact with Dad without my consent. I blocked relatives who called me ungrateful or dramatic, and kept the ones who quietly sent proud of you messages when they thought no one was looking. As for Marisol, we met for coffee one afternoon. Anthony walked in slowly on a cane, scars ghosting his skin, eyes clear. Thank you, he said, for not letting him turn me into a footnote. I shook his hand, feeling something in my chest finally unclench. If you're watching this because your family cut you off, here's what I'll tell you. It will hurt like hell, and it might save your life. Get your own bank account. Document everything. Find one safe person, friend, therapist, aunt, stranger on the internet, who believes you. You are not crazy for wanting the truth more than you want a seat at a poisoned table. I still don't know if my father will ever truly face everything he's done, but I know this much now. I will never again bleed just to keep their spotless reputation alive.